Hello everybody, welcome! It is Thursday. We are going to do a little bit of an edutainment workshop today on screenshots. So welcome to every screenshot of painting, which has been directly ripped from every form of painting on YouTube. So this is going to be a sort of workshop about tips and tricks for taking screenshots in The Sims 4 that I have come to find over the years, as well as just kind of a basic sort of compositional cheat sheet that you can think of and keep in the back of your brain while you're taking screenshots in The Sims. My name is Anne. I am a custom content creator. I am SurelySims in the custom content world. I make retro CC for The Sims 4. I also like to write. So I write a legacy called The Plot Legacy, and it's about spies and supervillains and everything in between. And I also, a little bit of background, I have a background in television animation, and I went to school for animation illustration. So I don't have too much of a credential to be teaching anyone anything, but that's where we're at. So this is going to be a little bit more of an advanced tutorial. So like medium to advanced. I am basically the only prerequisites are I'm assuming that you understand that tab goes into free cam. If not, I'm gonna blow your mind right now. And that you've also had kind of dealt with poses before. But we're gonna go, if you haven't, we have a ton of resources. So I'm going to start with a disclaimer. So this is the same disclaimer I read before any of my edutainment sessions. So I do not claim to be the absolute authority on any of the things I'm going to share with you today. There are millions of ways to approach every subject. This is just mine. Like everyone, I am a work in progress. I am constantly learning and improving, but I feel knowledgeable enough on these topics to share my process with you. I highly encourage everyone to seek out outside resources as well as see how other creators accomplish the same task. Above all, I hope these streams and videos can help you find the fun in learning, failing, and innovating along the way. During the lesson, I won't be responding to chat to keep the video as concise and streamlined as possible, but if you have any questions, you can submit them at any time by typing Q, as in question, followed by your question, and we'll go over them together at the end of the stream. After the stream is over, this recording will be posted to YouTube along with a link to the slideshow because there's a bunch of fun links in it. All right, let's get into it. Resources. So we're going to start out with the resources and different kind of mods that I use because these just kind of baseline things. A lot of these things you're going to be familiar with already. Maybe some of them will be new. But we'll go through it. Okay, so first off, Pose player. Oh my god. If you're gonna pose and if you're gonna take screenshots, pose player is a must. Pose player, I was about to say was invented by Andrew. Pose player is upkept by Andrew, created by Andrew, and it's kind of our main sort of touchstone for doing poses in The Sims. But we also have a new little runner-up into the competition. Just kidding. No, it's all collaborative here. Wicked, you can also pose with Wicked and Wonderful Whims, and a lot of you know this, and a lot of you use this. And there are pros and cons to each, and I'll go over them a little bit later. So Wicked, it's not just like a little bit of dirty stuff. There's also a lot of really cool stuff you could do with it. That mod is built like a truck. Teleporter night, of course. So teleporter night, we know it, we love it. We use it to get our Sims places they shouldn't be. MC Command Center, a different sort of way that, besides, doing everything, MC Command Center is also useful for posing, for teleporting Sims, changing dresser, all sorts of stuff like that, changing outfits. Tool, another way we get our Sims places they shouldn't be. Also, Tool is super helpful for just rotating things that shouldn't be rotated. Just also, and then Reshade, G-Shade, this is something I use a lot because I don't like to edit my screenshots. I take so many of them, and if I can get away with not editing them, I will. And I try not to, do any of that stuff. So, but super optional. Very in-depth. We're not going to go too much into Reshade and G-Shade in this tutorial, but I have some resources, and not resources is just amoeba. SWRE, this is a program that you can use to kind of inflate the size of your game screen bigger than your monitor so that you can take really high quality photos. I used to use this a lot when I was doing like portraits or any sort of like photo shoot. If I was taking pictures of a friend's CC, I would use that and make my screen like 2K, 3K, because I have my screen's like a sort of a 1080p situation. And then I realized that and I use it less now because I realized that my monitor actually goes to 3K, and I just didn't notice for years that I could make it 3K. So I use it a lot less now, but I'll include some links to how to use that. Also some extra helpful little loose story mods, UI cheats, as always. If you need to change the weather, if you need to change the time, if you need to quickly fill your Sims' needs so that they don't die from changing the weather or the time. Very useful. I remember when Dr. Simcraft was doing a funeral scene, changed the time, and then everyone shat themselves and she rage quit. It was very funny. Chat Still, this is a great mod. So Chat Still by Yacht Farm is a great mod because if you ever wanted to have your Sims, like your storyteller, you want your Sims to have a conversation, Sims like to sit. They like to sit down. And this is a great mod because when I go to initiate a conversation, I want two Sims to be standing and talking to each other. They will go sit down, but then you could tell them to stand up and they will stay there. They won't try and go sit down again. They will stay there. They will talk to each other. It is very useful. Again, this PowerPoint will be available for everybody at the end of the stream. And I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to link it for you. And these are all links. Clickable Worlds by Wing and Llama is great, with the caveat that your Sims will stop routing where they need to go. Your Sims will route a little odd. So it's not something you keep in all the time, but it is great for tooling things where they shouldn't be, maybe getting a screenshot off in a weird corner. It's great. I usually just put it in for the world I need it for, like I'm doing a big Tartosa thing, so I take that in and I tool stuff around. Fashion Authority by Lot 51 is great, and it has been updated since I've last made a video on it. I figured I could use it for like pose accessories I use a lot without having to assign them to an outfit for my sim. It's something that I can throw a pose accessory on real quick. And let's hop into the game real quick and I'll show you this, because I don't think Fashion Authority is going to come up as often. We're not going to get too much into props right now. So I'm going to just show you this real quick on how to make a pose accessory since it's been updated. So this is this is not my casino. This is Dr. Simcraft's casino. It's like a shared baby thing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna see if I still have my pose accessory set up, or we'll make a new one. So I have it so I have to shift click on my sim, but I think maybe it's just regular click on this one. Let's see, usually it's shift click, but I'm also in a weird save. There we go. So I'm going to, let's just make for a news thread from scratch, because we haven't, let's just like go over this from the beginning. So I'm going to create a thread for him. I want to get, basically I have a pistol I use for all my spies, and I want to have something I can just grab for that and without having to go to cast every time. So I'm going to make a new thread. I'm going to call it a generic uniform because it's not going to apply unless I want it to, but you can do all kinds of stuff with this. This is just specifically for pose accessories. So I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to, before I do anything, I am going to give it a name. We'll call it Spy Pistol. Just so, because as soon as you go into cast with this, it exits out of the menu. So you'll assign it in cast, but also you'll lose it because it won't have a name. And you can also like set icons for these. He added a ton of icons. It's very cute. I think, let's see, I'm gonna try and find something. We'll do a watch, that's fine. And then also I want to go ahead, we have merging enabled, which is good, and I want to change the outfit merging rules. So instead of replacing the clothing, I know my pistol is a ring, so I just want to do rings. And then now I will go into cast, and I will grab my pistol, and that's the only thing I'm going to put on the outfit. We're going to watch Bunhilda dance. Yes, queen, go. She keeps me going. She keeps me alive. I'm going to go into cast real quick. I'm going to go grab my pistol. I have so many loose pose accessories. I'm going to use this one. So this is, I know, my stigmata one. And then that's all I need. And then this is where the change has happened. So now this just confused me as well, and then I figured it out. Now, so that when if we want to merge it onto the current outfit instead of it just going back to everyday and getting really strange because I was having issues with this, he has added an advanced little toggle. When we click it, it will allow accessory merging mode, essentially. There she goes. Okay. So now we are back. Give it a second to breathe. Okay. So let's go ahead. We're going to click on chat again. We're going to wait. Yep. All right. And then we're going to go over to Fashion Authority settings. And it is this toggle right here. Enable accessory merge mode for advanced users. And now we can go back and we can go manage all threads. We go grab that spy pistol we just made. We're going to change into our outfit. And now he's ready to pose. Of course, it's conflicting with his eyelashes, but that's just a, life. Give him glasses or something. And then, so if I wanted to change his outfit back into what he was wearing. What are you wearing? Hey. There we go. We change his outfit. Dresser's having glitches right now, so yeah, but now it's not permanent. So I wanted to show that off real quick because we're probably not going to circle back to Fashion Authority. Okay, cool. Keep going. Sorry about that. So Studio Effect Player is also a great mod. This is also by Andrew. And it is a little guy that you can summon like different effects, like explosions, basically anything in the game. Because every effect, actually, fun fact, even if it's in a pack, is base game, technically. So we can summon explosions, steam, fire, smoke, fog, whatever. If it's an effect, we can summon it. And this, you just have to be very careful with it because it is very easy to crash your game because effects take up a lot of processing power. So just save before messing with it. But definitely look into it if you've ever been interested in that. I've used it a lot. Okay, so tutorials. It's free real estate. So these are just a bunch of tutorials, and these are all going to be linked and available afterwards, but I'll go over them really quickly. The tool tutorial, I know it's 20 minutes, but it's so useful. Everyone, I recommend it. I really recommend just taking the 20 minutes to watch the tool tutorial. Like, oh no, I don't need it. It's helpful. It's helpful. Sims 4 posing tutorial by Azura. Azura wrote the most comprehensive posing tutorial I've ever read. And if you are new to Sims 4 posing, or even if you're not new, it's very useful and there's a lot of fun tips and tricks in there. I highly recommend it. Amiibe, the queen of Reshade. If you have never used Reshade before, you're having trouble with Reshade, Amiibe has a ton of tutorials, asks, just everything from Relight to MXAO. So just definitely check out her Q&As, her previous asks, and if you're probably going to find an answer in there. How to Use Wicked Whims as a Pose Player by GiaXOX from last year. So if you've never used Wicked as a pose player, that's a great resource as well. Starting for 0 on that. This is the tutorial I learned how to use SRWE for The Sims 4. Thank you so much for that, Sims. It's very quick, easy, and explains it extremely well if you've never used it. Back a while back, there was a huge, massive Tumblr thread on everyone giving their storytelling tips and tricks for The Sims 4. So I linked this, and it's kind of just like worth going through all the notes and reading what everyone has to say, because everyone's got such a unique perspective and different learned experiences and just different way that they tell their stories, and it's just fascinating to read, and you'll probably pick up on some tricks that you've never ever heard before. Every Favorite Painting, the YouTube channel, or I stole the name of this stream from, is a fantastic resource as well. And very digestible, easy to watch videos on cinematography and just like the way cinema works. So in this tutorial, we're not going to be going over the different types of shots, like establishing shot, wide shot, close-up shot. These are things that you can also kind of find everywhere on the internet. I kind of want to focus in on just like Sims tricks specifically and easy to keep in your back of the mind kind of things as you're shooting, because we're not here to make sure that we're hitting all of our shots on our shot list. We're here to have fun. All right, so camera tricks. Woo! Okay, so the camera in The Sims 4 is a little bit, it's fine, the default camera, but we can make it better. So let's talk about editing our camera file. So a lot of people have mods for this, like Sims for Sims has a ton of camera mods, but I'm going to talk about how we can edit our own camera mod. So first thing you'll want to do when editing our camera file is you're going to find it in your bin. So it's going to be in bin/res. And you want to open the video camera. And this is something you can do while your game is open, and we'll kind of show you that in a bit. So it's going to come up as a text file. So there's only a couple things we need to worry about, so I'm going to highlight them for you. So in tab mode, I find that the camera moves a little bit too fast. So these 4 values are something that you'll want to play around with and edit, and let me show you how to do that right now, actually. So let's bring back our notepad. So if you want to edit these values, what you'll want to do is actually go into tab mode, and it's good to do this while you're in windowed, so you can actually click off. And did you know when you're in tab mode, if you click, you can kind of freeze the frame? I played this game for like 8 years. I didn't know that. That if you just like click once while you're in tab mode, it'll hold your frame. So if I come in here, and right now I have it set to 1, which is, these are just the settings that I have. So you can see I have no deceleration. And I can just kind of tap very slightly and change my camera very slightly. So if we were to come in here and if we were to change this to something like 5, which I believe might be the default, you'll see that I'm just tapping the A key and I'm going much farther. And then if I change this to something like 0.5, and I save that, now it's even more minuscule. This can get annoying if you're trying to go places, like if you're trying to get a zoom in across the lot. What you can do is you can hold down Shift, and that will multiply it by this number here. So this is the fast modifier, I believe. Let's check it. Let's see if I'm right. Maybe it's wrong. A lot of these don't do anything anymore. So we don't need to edit too much of it, but I think 1 is pretty good for me. It's not too fast, not too slow. And I find that I can get most camera angles I need to with it. So another thing we can do, let's go ahead and hide that. I kind of showed you already the, so deceleration is the cushion that when you move your camera, it's like this little bit of cushion that kind of floats for a bit. So if I put that back at 1, you'll see that that's probably not supposed to be at 1 because we're still going. We're still going, guys. So maybe let's try like 0.05. Okay, so yeah, you see now it's a little less. It's to kind of, it's a weird sort of adjust that you can see. This is kind of what more like the Sims default camera is like. So I actually turn this off. This is something that Shubi taught me how to do. So I know where I put my camera is where it's going to stop. And it's a big adjust, kind of mentally if you're used to all of the floating. But I like it, and I've gotten used to it. Okay. So let's go back to our PowerPoint. And then all this stuff here, there's pitch, yaw, roll. This is just something that I've never really gotten good at. And if you use the Wicked Whims positioner, when you go to change the kind of rotation you can do, it has like pitch, yaw, roll. So I just wanted to give you a visual representation. This doesn't have too much to do with anything, but it always bugs me because I feel like I'm always clicking random ones. So here's kind of a visual representation of what those all do with like an airplane. So I know if I need to change it back, it'll be yaw. Not too much, but that's interesting because I don't usually think about it. All right, so we continue on in our document. So these are our limits, and basically the only thing I change here is the minimum position height. So with the Sims, it starts, I believe, at like 0.02, if I'm remembering correctly. So that means that you can only go down, oh, maybe that's even lower, but yeah, usually it only lets you go down to about here. And I like to take shots under the water. I like to take shots in basements. So if I'm in a basement looking up, I like to be able to move my camera. So I set it to -5 because a short wall in this game is 3 tiles, a medium wall is 5 tiles, and a tall wall is 8 tiles. And I've never felt like I needed any more than that. So that is just something that you can consider. But now I should be able to, sink into the earth, but it does stop me. Hello, Whalebert. It does stop me at a certain point. So if we come back, and then last we have our cameras. So in The Sims, you can, when you're in tab mode, you can save a camera. So if this is something I use a lot. So if I wanted to take a shot of my sim, I would hold down Control and hit 5. You can do this anywhere from numbers from 5 to 9. But if you use 9 to elevate things, like elevate different objects when you're building, maybe avoid using 9. I think someone told me you can use Alt to clear it, or you could just come into your camera file and delete it. But so now when I hit 5, it snaps right to him. And why does it snap right to him? Because I have this set to no time at all. So there's a couple things. Machinima, people that make Machinima will know this. We can set our interpolator type, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But this is the time it takes. So if I wanted it to take a little bit longer to get to him, I'll like start over here and then I'll hit 5. And so it's taking a little bit longer. I just take screenshots. I'm not taking video right now. So I find that 0.2 is very snappy. So I use this if I want to, let's say I want to take a picture of my sim on the casino floor. And objects in The Sims 4, they have fade. So when you get close to them, they fade away like that. And when I'm taking pictures, I'll set up my camera, ignore the stuff that's just floating. Sorry, I haven't been on this lot in a while. I tried to replace some stuff. So if I wanted to get this as a picture, I would set my camera up, but I can't be sure that I don't have like stuff behind me that's been disappeared on me because of the fade. So what I'll do is I will pull back my camera to get everything fully loaded in, then I'll hit 5 and then I'll just pop right back where I want it to. And now I know that things are all here and they are all loaded in. Like, oh, hello, cart. Were you there before? I don't know, maybe. But that's one of the ways. That's why I keep it so short, so I can just pop in and out of my scene really quickly. So we come back and then I'll tell you about these. So the interpolator type, linear is going to be your point A to point B, no easing in or out. And then easy in, easy out, easy in and out are exactly what they sound like. So easy in, you're going to have a slower in, and it's going to kind of be like a curve on a graph, or like a roller coaster coming down where you have actually easy out would be like a roller coaster coming down, because you would have a sort of faster in and then it would kind of level out at the end. So I can show you kind of what that looks like in The Sims as well. So let's just let's give it some time. So I'm gonna just change this to easy out. And then I'll give it like 2 seconds. So now if I go into tab mode, oh, maybe it didn't change. Let's see. I haven't played with these in a while, so. Oh, you have to change it while it's in tab mode. There we go. So you'll see it's got sort of this ramp effect. Yeah, make sure you're in tab mode when you're changing it, otherwise it's not going to do anything. So, and then that one that's an easy out, so I had more of a cushion at the end. And then you can also do easy in out, so it'll kind of cushion, level out, and cushion. And you have to make sure you save it. And then, so it's kind of got different cushion at the end. So that's visually kind of how you can think about that. So I'm gonna reset my camera file because that's gonna bother me later real quick. But it's just to show you that make sure, number one, make a copy of the default, because the only way to get this back to default is by either having a copy on hand or repairing your game. So before you start editing this, before you start doing anything, make a copy of the default on your desktop, and then go ahead, play around with it. If you do something wrong, you'll have a copy, which is important. And then also keep a copy somewhere in case the game updates and you lose your settings. So let's come back. So that's going to be, and then also with this PowerPoint, when I post it, I will include my file. If you found that, wow, what she's got going on is also kind of what I want to get going on. So you can just download my file and have it on hand and change it as you want. All right, so basic in-game camera tricks. So we were just there. We're gonna hop back and we're gonna talk about some basic in-game camera tricks. So we talked about control 5 through 9. And another thing to note is even if you save and close your game, your saved positions are going to be the same, but they will change based on a lot. I love Val because every time I load into anything, he's just pissed. So this is probably like an old position that I had, and you can see they're doing weird things. But so even after you reload your game, you'll have the same positions. And we talked about fade. The other little camera trick, basic camera trick that a lot of people know about, but maybe some people don't know about. Actually, I learned this from Bog. You can go into first person mode with Shift Tab, and it's a fun little gimmick. But for storytelling, it's cool because if you look a direction, like say, well, I was already looking that way. So say I want him to like look over here. Just doing this while it's paused will do nothing. Okay, excuse me, sir, we're looking over here. So while it's paused, it'll do nothing, but so what you have to do is you have to unpause it, wait for him to turn. But then now his eyes are looking in the direction that I want him to. So this is really good if you just have a bunch of like standard talking poses. It can kind of change the dynamic because then you can have them look left to right. What I find with this, if you're posed, it also takes your arms with you. So it'll also rotate, it kind of rotates the top half of your body. And if you unpause, it'll go kind of back to normal. So you have a few seconds, and if you're fast, you can kind of do this with 2 Sims, but it's mainly just a 1 sim at a time trick. So if I have you look over here again, Val, sorry. So if I have him looking over there, and sometimes I'll just go in and I'll quickly pause, unpause, like that. And this is a very chunky lot, so it takes a while to pause, unpause. But he'll start turning back to his position so I can get some stuff out of this. And I find usually that the eyes are the last thing to leave. But yeah, so you can tell this is a really big lot. So usually your game should pause and unpause a lot faster than that. But you look so baby girl, stop. Okay, cool. So that's kind of a first person camera trick, and we can use this with poses as well, and we'll go over that in right now. So, Wicked posing versus pose player. Pros, cons, and everything in betweens. So Wicked and pose player both have very good like specific uses. Not like specific, but they have, we'll go through it. So with Wicked, the way we move things, Wicked versus pose player. So Wicked comes with its own positioner, and I'll show you that, but it's also in the tutorial. And this is really useful for getting your Sims places that they shouldn't be. Tool is also very useful for getting your Sims places they shouldn't be, but if you don't have clickable worlds in, you can't tool. So you can't tool where you can't click, if that makes sense. The Wicked Whim's positioner, you can go wherever you want. I shot Sims like 200 feet in the air. I have moved them on top of scenery that is not actually ground. I've gone basically anywhere you want. You can also use tool with Wicked Whim's pose player, but you just have to be aware that sometimes it will snap back to the default position or wherever you had them last positioned. So maybe that's something that's good, because then you can reset it. So if I could show you what this looks like really quick if you've never seen it before. So I'll bring up, let's just grab a pose. Oh dear. Let's see. Let's just grab one of these poses from Paso Grandes. It's probably gonna be leaning on some sort of chair, invisible chair. Oh no, look at his little hand. But I just want to show you positioner real quick. So also, searchable UI, it's great. Nothing to do with posing and storytelling, but searchable UI by Twisted Maxi. So you'll get this positioner. And what's great about this positioner, I can show you this. There's our pitch yaw and roll again. That's why I brought up the plane picture. We can set the increment from anywhere to just a little bit to a whole tile. Or if you got to really motor somewhere, you can put in your custom number. Maybe you need to go 10 tiles at a time. The kind of downside is that this stays still while your sim moves. So if you have to move him very far away, you'll kind of be like, have your sim over here and the positioner over here, and you're like, yeah, I think it's working. One thing you can do if you really want to, you really want, you can tool this actually, the whole positioner. So if you toggle that and you hold down Alt to grab all of these, some of them won't select because they are already green. But now I can kind of move this around if I want it somewhere else, or if I want to keep it up and I don't want to keep hiding and showing it. So it still works the same way. You're still gonna keep motoring across. But if you need it to be somewhere else, that is an option. And you can also reset positioning, disable positioning, all that kind of stuff. So that is an option. So, and then with tool, it acts like tool. Again, you can't go places you can't click with tool. So that's the one downside there. Dressers. Wicked Whims has its own version of dresser. Did you know that? And it is superior. I'm gonna give MCC dresser its flowers real quick. I know it gray screens your game a lot. You know why? You need to let your load a little bit. You're gonna have a lot more success with dresser, with teleporter, if you just let your lot play for like 5 seconds, let it load up, because a lot of the time I know that I would have it gray screen my game was when I just like loaded into a lot, okay, or I like loaded back in from cast or something, and then I immediately go to teleport something, I immediately go to dress someone without letting the game play for a couple seconds. So give that a try. You'll probably find you get better results. Wicked has its own version of dresser, and it is fantastic, and has only gray screened my game once. Like, ever. And that was a very rare occasion. So I will show you that, and it's something you have to turn on, and I always lose it, so I wrote it down for you guys where it is, and I'm going to show you how to find it. So I'm going to click on the noun, I'm going to go to Wicked Settings, and it's going to be under Sex Settings, and in Cheats. So it's this switch here, Global Instant Undressing Switch. So this lets you, lets it act like dresser on any of your sims, not just your own sim, and it lets you do it instantly. So I'm going to free Val from his prison. But so if I wanted to, before little test child, so if I wanted to, it's buried in the Wicked menu. I believe it's under Actions, Instant Undress. So you have all of these options available to you at any time. I use it a lot. So if I have a pose accessory equipped, and a lot of people will, in cast, they'll do a pose accessory with an outfit and then another outfit without the pose accessory, so that they could swap back and forth between them with dresser without having to re-go into cast. What I will do is I will create an outfit with the pose accessory, and I will use Wicked Undresser to undress that accessory, as long as I know where it is. So if I wanted to undress his glasses, I can do that, and it'll take his glasses off. And it's not changing the outfit. It's like Fashion Authority, where if I change back into it, they'll come back. So it's just temporary, and it's very useful. I have Val selected, but I can get rid of Poppy's earrings if I wanted to. Let's see, I think it's actually earrings. There's like hand earrings, play around with it. I use this a lot for shoes. I can spell shoes. So if I just search for shoes, it'll undress her shoes. And you can change back and forth. So it's great for little things, little details like that, because I'm always like, no shoes on the bed. What are you doing? Nasty, disgusting animals. So that's a really cool option. And then also, if you have searchable UI, I just search for change, and it's always going to be the one on the right. So, but dresser's not working, but yay, it did work that time. And we'll change it back. So we have Val selected, so even though the one, I could share it on him as well. So if it's on your own select sim, you'll have 2 options. This will be the EA one, and this will be the Wicked one. Usually, for me. That's how it goes. So I hope that's helpful. And then we got his glasses back. So that's like one of the biggest things that I really enjoy about using Wicked Whims as a pose player. So here's kind of where it's a pick your poison deal. Wicked Whims lets you only do 1 pose at a time. But it does keep you in that pose menu from whoever you click. So if you have a set of poses, you're only gonna be able to pick 1, but when you go to click on them again, you'll be in that same menu. You don't have to scroll again. Pose player lets you queue poses, which is good also as well. It just really depends on what kind of pictures you're gonna need to be taking. So if you have a lot, maybe it's just a whole pack and they don't have it all in one. Maybe it's just a whole pack of A's and B's and you want to go in and select all of them. You can queue poses basically with pose player. You've done it before. Wicked Whims, no kids, no pets, for obvious reasons. So if you want to take those family photos, you're not using Wicked Whims for it, I guarantee you that. Pose player, you can pose everybody as you can. And also, if you wanted to do a family pose, I'd recommend doing it all with pose player, because if it's an animation, they have different startup times. So Wicked Whims kind of stops everything you're doing, and it has this sort of waiting period, and then it goes into the pose. So it'll you don't have to wait for idols or anything, but it will have a little bit of a 5-second head like startup time before it gets into the pose. And if you're trying to time that with like kids or pets, it's better just to do it all in pose player. Pose player, on the other hand, you gotta wait for idols. So if my Sims are out coughing in the gross Del Sol air, you gotta wait for that to finish before the pose starts. So you could get things that are off. So even you gotta wait for that infant to lay down. You gotta wait for the horse to do its little shaky animation. So it's a tricky little timing process. With Wicked Whims, you cannot do the first person head cheat. This is just something that I have observed. So if you know you're going to be doing a lot of talking animations and you want to have your Sim looking back and forth, maybe you're going to do that scene with pose player. All right, so that's kind of basically, they're both great. They both have their uses, and I use them interchangeably. So that's just kind of how I've observed them over the years. So let's move on to something very important. There are no rules in art. So we're going to talk a lot about art. There are no rules, but there are some principles. So once you understand the principles, you'll understand how and when you can break them. In school, in my freshman year of college, I took a really detailed perspective class, and it was a lot of math, a lot of rendering cubes for 40 hours so they looked perspectively perfect and the lighting was perfect, and calculating how the light rays bounced. I had to make my own textbook on perspective. It was very technical, and at the end of the class, our teacher said, "You're never going to use this. This is just something to keep in the back of your mind as you draw." And that's going to be the same thing here. You're going to go, but I'm going to tell you now. So I'm going to go over some kind of things, and these are kind of just things that you can keep in the back of your mind as you go taking pictures of The Sims. Because number one, first and foremost, this is a game. We're here to have fun. So let's talk about blocking. So what is blocking? Blocking is a film term. It comes from theater. And basically what I've boiled it down to myself is how the camera and elements in our scene and our frame help us tell our stories. So the term blocking comes from 19th century Victorian theater, or is thought to come from, when the directors would use little pieces of wood to organize how they wanted their actors to appear on stage. And there's going to be there's a lot of different big film rules, but we're really just going to boil it down to a couple things that we can use in The Sims. So we'll start with focal length. So focal length is kind of how our camera, the range of our camera lens in The Sims. And I find that in The Sims 4, our focal length is a little bit long to begin with when we enter tab mode. So let's take, I've been torturing Val long enough. I'm gonna have Poppy come teleport into here, and I'll put Alejandro over here. He's cranky. I'm sorry. They're so smoggy. So I'm gonna let them teleport in there. Poppy, please face the camera. Alejandro, please face the camera. Thank you. Cool. So I have them placed sort of at the ends of the room. So this is our default focal length in The Sims 4. I find that it's a little zoomed out for my own personal taste. So what I'll do in a lot of intimate sort of conversation, normal moments, is I'll actually zoom it like 1 or 2 clicks in. And this feels a little more I don't know, intimate, flat. But you'll see as I do that, she is getting closer. It's like the appearance, she's appearing to get close to us. So what happens when you have a shorter focal length is the background comes towards the camera. And as we come out, the background will recede. So if I come out all the way and I push, she feels a lot farther away. This is great for taking really terrible pictures of tiny bathrooms. And it has its uses. So, but if I zoom all the way in, she appears much closer to us, which we can use as well. So what I'll do oftentimes is I'll zoom almost all the way in, or all the way in, because it gives me a nice sort of flat, undisturbed kind of no distortion, and then I'll pull out as far as I need to get my shot, just by moving the camera, not zooming at all. So zooming in is more intimate. It's great for conversations. Zooming out, like I said, it's great for taking really bad pictures of bathrooms, but it's also kind of good for something like action shots or something, maybe where maybe everything isn't as it seems. Maybe we want to give our audience a bit of unease or add some motion in. So if we pop back to our PowerPoint, you'll see that the first shot has a much shorter focal length than the second shot, where we're bringing we're pushing him back and we're bringing the front of the sim ray more closer towards the camera, and it creates a more dynamic sort of action shot. So that's focal length. Let's talk about foreground, midground, and background. Foreground elements are something that's really great to work into your shots. And I'm not saying any of these shots that I'm going to show you today are God tier. They are just examples. But, so right here we can tell we have a clear foreground with this pool ladder, and we're using it to highlight and tell the audience to look at the character. And our eyes go immediately there because one, he has a dark broiler suit on sort of a white tile background, so he's the highest point of contrast in the scene. Also, he's being physically framed by this pool ladder, so that even if these people are closer to us, he is who we are directly looking at first. Yeah, okay, cool. Clear that. So you can also use nature. I use this a lot. I use nature to frame my elements. So we have the trees here in the foreground, and it's kind of cutting our scene down so that even though Diego's shirt is the same color as these flowers, that's my bad. I probably would have changed that if I thought about it. We still go to them because our eye has nothing to look at here. It's resting in the midground and they are in the background. So we kind of create this little glade for them to be highlighted. And the water down here gives our eyes a little bit of rest. We can also use people as foreground, and we can use it to tell a story. So this starts getting into, I want to put something in my foreground. I want to create some interest. All right, okay, what are we doing? And is it adding to the story or is it subtracting from the story? Is it confusing our audience or making something clear? So right here we have Poppy and Kate physically trapping Diego in this weird little awkward conversation. And we can tell that Poppy isn't wearing a shirt, and you can see exactly what he's reacting to. And I just think it's a fun little element here. But so even though we can't see our faces, we kind of get, just from this image, what's going on in the scene. And also, not to mention that these guys are massive in the scene, and he is small, so that you know that they are kind of the ones in power. If we're gonna pull out, I'm gonna pull out all my bullshit art terms today. So I'm gonna talk. I'm really good at talking art shit out of my ass. So I apologize. But we're gonna pull out all the sauce to you. So this is a different kind of example of framing with people. I wish I had a version of this where they were less fuzzy, but we see Vera here is the sharpest in the scene, and we have our two characters here kind of framing her in. But I'm saying that I don't want to look at these guys because they're very fuzzy. I want you to look at Vera's expression as she watches Chad leave in a hurry. She's also trapped in the shot, but she's on the same level as our main villain. So that's kind of a foreshadowing that maybe she's okay. She's not as not in power as maybe we think she might be. So this is more recent. Here I've used nature to kind of frame out and add interest to the foreground. This is also framing. So this is the first time that we are introduced to this sort of cult leader character. We can see him physically trapping these girls in his like little, he's acting like welcome, but we also have the foreground framing his weird little cult bed. We have him trapping them in the scene. So that's kind of just a different way to think about like elements in your background, how they can tell a story. Yes, so we have him kind of pushing them deeper into the conversation. So when you're framing something, maybe think about what it is in the scene. So this is an example of having a prop framed in the foreground that's like the most important. If I was to do this again, I'd probably try and make the silhouette of the glass clearer because I want my audience to look here. I want them to think that's a little weird. Why is this being framed in the foreground? So we have our foreground with the glass, we have our villain over here, and then we have our sim leaving in the background who has just left this glass, and the goal is to create a little bit of a sense of, why are we looking at this? Is this important? So when you put objects in the foreground and you're trying to just take a sort of a stylistic shot, basically boils down to, is this going to add to my story or is this going to confuse my audience? Like, why are we highlighting a random coffee maker? That thought will go through my mind. Like, yeah, this looks cool, but why are we highlighting the coffee maker? So just something to keep in mind. So next, arguably, one of the most important things to me in some storytelling is making sure we have a clear silhouette with our sims. This is not a mistake, it's just something I see a lot. So let's talk a little bit about contrast. Like Chad in the boiler suit earlier, our eye is drawn towards the highest point of contrast in the scene. So here I have three characters. They're having a conversation. If I squint my eyes, which is something we do in art, it kind of boils it down to its most basic shapes. So if you squint your eyes, Vera disappears. She is gone. She is the same color as the rocks. So I don't want that. I want her to be included in the conversation. So I probably wouldn't use this shot. What I can do, something very easy, is just move the horizon so she's being framed more by the sky. She's being included. This is a problem I have with Chad a lot as well, because he's the same color as like a warm toned wood, and I also frame him against a lot of warm toned wood because he's a very warm toned man. So you have to find opportunities in your scene to make sure your character isn't being eaten by their own environment. So again, same thing with Sean here. Sean has the most melanin in the cast. Him and Argent could probably go toe to toe in melanin wise. He is being eaten by these doors. If I squint, he becomes scenery, and I don't want that. He's talking in the scene. I want you to look at him. So the really easy fix for this, I just frame him against the pillars in the background. So he has this very clear silhouette. He's the first person we look at because he has the highest contrast in the scene. And then our eye sort of follows. We go from Sean to Poppy to Chad to our secret Easter egg in the back, who by this time, I'm hoping you have either scrolled past or haven't noticed. Because people are going to look at your images really fast and then they're going to move on. But I want it so that when you go back after the twist is revealed, you can be like, oh my god, there it is. So it's kind of the deal with like a first, second, and third read. So our first read is going to be Sean, highest point of contrast, that's a 1. Our second read, we see Poppy and Chad coming in here. And our third read and our final read is Leanne in the background. So now that we kind of have something to keep in mind while we're shooting, let's break it. Yes, there are no rules in art, but let's break them anyway. So this is a funeral scene. These are two characters that haven't seen each other in a while. They are best friends. They kind of drifted apart. So we have our environment here creating this sort of separation. So we have these windows highlighting our characters, having us focus just on their faces and emotion. They're in full black. This is all getting eaten by the scene because I want you to focus on their faces. If I was to take this again, or if I was to put this on Twitter, probably crop it right here. Because I don't want you looking at this. I want you looking at this. So we have this middle window here creating this physical barrier. And this isn't something I just like, I was like, I'm going to create a physical barrier. This is just something that was in the build already. And I was like, oh, this is a cool opportunity. So don't sweat about it too much. This stuff to keep in mind. So we have this physical barrier of this window kind of telling us that these characters are, there's like sort of invisible barrier that's been put up between them. We break that, we bring them together. So we push them towards each other and now they meet in this window and creates this lovely little negative space. I love this shot because this is all you're focusing on. Everything else falls away. Everything else falls away, but we are looking right here when the scene changes. And it's a lovely little bit of just stylistically using a negative and positive space to create a mood. And I think it turned out neat. This is more recent scene. Here we have two different agents. Poppy has woken up. She's seen something in the middle of the night. She has woken up her fellow agent who was not too happy about it and thinks she's a little bit crazy. They are physically separated in the scene by these windows. They're actually being framed in these windows here because they have two kind of viewpoints on the situation. They also have, as agents, they have two very different styles. Poppy's more impulsive, Kate's more controlling, specific, methodical. I'm trying this arc to do as much as I can to place physical barriers between them to show that they've got these two sort of ideologies. And I take a lot of pictures, and I was planning on doing something more towards the end to separating them, but the way the kind of the dialogue ended up, they seem not to be having too much of an issue at all, so I decided not to use a shot where they're being physically separated at the end. So it's just something to keep in mind. But let's talk a little bit about cheating things in your scene. So if we look at the shot, the pose is gonna be slightly different. Same shot. There's a TV here. In the room. Physically, there's a TV right there. Poppy's standing in a chair. So why have we done this? Basically what I'll do when I go to take screenshots, and I'll show you a little bit about this later, is I will find a cool camera frame that I like. Maybe something will catch my eyes. Maybe something will be like, you know, it would be really cool if I have them framed in these windows. That'd be really awesome. So I'll set my camera up, I'll save the position, and then I'll go in with Tool and I'll move them so that they are actually in these frames. And then maybe I'll say, oh, this TV's in the way. So I'll clip into it, make it fade, hit tab, and it'll pop back into what we have here. So that maybe it's not correct specifically, but it is clear, and that's what we want. If I was to go back and do this shot again, I'd probably come inside, I'd make these fade, and then get it back, because this is just an element in the composition that I'm not vibing with. So again, just another one about using your environment. This is the arc where they start off best friends and they slowly are getting farther and farther, and this is right before our Act 2 finale. Well, the big event at the end of Act 2. So they have an entire conversation separated by a door the entire time. So because they have two different kind of goals and we can tell that they're splitting. So I've physically split them in the scene. It's just another thing that I remembered I did. So I thought it would be nice to include. And again, talking about fade, did you notice that when we use this slide for a title, another thing you do is you can clip into Sims. You can make them disappear, and you can do some really fun things with this. So you'll see in this scene, Poppy's feeling guilty because she cheated on a really nice guy, and she's kind of having this sort of dreamlike vision. The reshade in the scene is awful. Just ignore it. I was going, it's not great. Low point. But I have physically in the scene, Alejandra's sitting on the bed here. She's having a conversation with him, but I want it to appear more dreamlike. So I've actually clipped into him, made him disappear, but he doesn't disappear in the mirror. So we can see that she's having a conversation with someone, but they're not actually there, which is a fun little bit of trickery you can do in The Sims. And then real quick, again, blocking, something that goes along with blocking, tangents. So tangents is a term in the art world where you have an object in the foreground that is kind of lining up specifically with an object in the background. So it kind of creates this weird sort of spatial fuzziness and weirdness. So right here, I have a very orange man against a very orange background. And the way I shot him, his ear is touching this branch. And it's annoying because I can see it, and that's the only thing I see. And I goes, that's weird. Really quick, easy fix is I'm just gonna move him slightly. So now he's got a nice clear composition. So let's go and put all of that into practice. Yeah, let's set up a conversation. Let's do it in the vault. Let's bring down Simcraft. Bring Val here. This is a great lot to show off things on because it's so large and it loads so slowly. So I'm just going to have, I'm going to use teleporter. I use MCC teleporter a lot to, it's going to be a sim commands, teleport commands. And I'm going to teleport a sim to the sim, lot sim, household. Well, if I have a lot of actors, I'll put them all in a club so that when I go to filter, they'll come up in the club filter, which I find useful. And now it's beautiful, we've made art. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna bring up pose player, Wicked Whims pose player, and you see it's still got our pack from earlier that we used. I'm gonna go grab one of Anne's packs because she always does these really great all-in-ones, and she is great for two people having a conversation about something. I'm gonna do, since they already have a height difference, I'm just gonna do this one. And then let's see, there we go. So let's say they're having a conversation about the vault here or something. So basically the way I would take shots in the scene, so we have columns that are gonna disappear. I want those to reappear. I want those to be clear that they're there. So maybe I'll start looking for kind of a shot. Maybe I'll line them up here. I'll push my focal length in. If I come here, this is in my way. So this is possibly an opportunity to get rid of that so I can get a clear shot of them. Maybe I like the way that they're framed here. And then I'll save this as my camera. I'll kind of come here. That's off. I have, oh, there's also a great mod that lets you do shorter cheats for headline effects. So now I have to kind of choose between, do I want columns or do I want this box to go away? And I think I want that box to go away. So then we'll come into our nice reshade. Whoa! And then I would take my shot. Just like that. Maybe I want him to be more centered in this frame. So I would come out, I would grab him with tool. The one thing with Wicked Whims Positioner as well with poses is you can only move one person at a time. That's a little bit of an annoying thing, that you can't move two people at a time. With tool you can. So what I'll do is I'll kind of tilt him, not tilt him, just slowly scooch him. And then I'll look at this all away. I'll look again and I'll say, is that where I want him? I'm a perfectionist, I want to move him slightly to the left. Then I'll take another look at it and I'll say, perfect, that's exactly where I want him to be. And that's kind of how I would line up a shot. And then I'd come back into Casino Heist. I'd line my shot up and now he's perfectly symmetrical. You can tell he's a very methodical person because he's there's a very symmetrical thing going on. Simcraft's kind of like reaching into his zone, so maybe that's something story-wise, who knows. So that's kind of how I go about taking my shots, and also saving camera angles like that if I wanted to throw some relight on it. I can actually, let me show you that real quick. Throw a little bit of relight on the scene. I've set up hotkeys for Casino Heist because I don't want to be clicking between back and forth, because I want you guys to be able to see what's happening. Like usually if I wanted to do UI, I would just hit my little toggle I have for seeing UI clearly, but it gets really dark. So I would come in here, I would go grab my relight, which I currently, I believe, have on. Oh, another thing. So this is a little reshade trick. I think this might be reshade. It's definitely a G-shade because I use it. When you load up G-shade, if you want to load it a little faster, you can click this little toggle here under settings that says do not load unused shaders. That way, when you load into your game, it's only loading the shaders that you use. If you're doing SWRE, you're only loading the shaders that you have set up, so it saves you a lot of load time. That's something you might want to consider trying out. So I think Relight's in here, but I've lost it. Yeah, there it is. So Relight's a great little program. They recently came out with a second version of it, and I'm still deciding if I like it. But if I click this, you'll see there's a giant ball, and I'm using it as a fill light in this scene. Because it's very dark. So this has been a great fill light. I used to use a spotlight filter and make it really big, and I'm still using that here, and I use it more to tone my scene as well. I'm going to turn on my cinematic depth of field just so we can see what we're doing, and I will, let's see, I wanted to like throw a little bit of warm light on the side of him. Relight's pretty easy. I suggest finding a copy, mucking about with it. It's just you take the balls, you move them in space. But the thing is, it does not adjust with your camera, so that's why it's important to save your camera angle. And sometimes I overdo it, sometimes I underdo it, but that's essentially how you would do it. And then maybe I'll throw my thing back in. So now I have, maybe it's a little more visually interesting. He's got a little bit of light coming in from the left. Or if I have a character that has more melanin and I want their face to be very clear and I want the audience to see their expression very clearly, I'll throw a little bit of a relight right in their face so that they're the focal point of the scene. So then we would take our screenshot and we would move on with our life. So I'm going to turn that little ball off. I'll actually show you real quick. You can actually see it. There's a physical little ball floating around because it's not staying where you put it. So that's why it's important to save your camera angles. All right, that was a really quick demonstration. So at this point, this is when I would go and just look around. Maybe I want to show off the expression. Maybe I want to come up, I want to page up, I want to get like a down shot or something. Get a shot through Whalebert. You can see that bright light was relight. Maybe I want to frame them with Whalebert because it's funny and it tells us where we are. Maybe I want to use the stairs to frame them, so I'm physically like telling you to look here. Oh good, my whiteboard stopped working. I love when that happens. Okay. But yes, there. So that is that. So double checking this works again. Good, we need that. We're gonna need that. Cool. Next, composition. This is going to be a very general, simplified overview. There's a million ways to do anything. Also, remember when I was talking about that coffee maker? I was making fun of myself. Why is the coffee maker in the foreground? What significance does it serve? I am learning and growing every day, just like y'all. So we're going to talk about compositions, and just, we don't need to be the master of compositions. We just want to keep some simple stuff in mind. So I don't understand Fibonacci, the golden rule. I thought I did. I thought I had an example for this, and then I went to go reread it up on it, and I said, oh, that's not what that is at all. So we're not going to talk about Fibonacci and who's keeping the golden rule in their brain when they're shooting screenshots in The Sims. So don't worry about it. If you can and you're great at it, all the more power to you. So we're going to just talk about some simple, easy sort of like compositions to keep in the back of your brain while you're playing and taking screenshots, because it should be fun. These should just be little like intrusive thoughts that pop up in the back of your brain and be like, oh, you know what, I could do this, I could do this. So we're gonna talk, the main one that I use all the time is the rule of thirds. And the rule of thirds is exactly, what do you think? Applying, so you know when you would fold a paper in half, like in thirds as a kid, like kind of burrito style? It's folding the screen in half burrito style, but both ways. So by separating our frame into these, I don't want to say quadrants because it's not quad, thirdrants, we kind of, in the art world and painting, these are sort of historically nice places to have our eye rest. So if we go back to this and we look at this and it's like, okay, let's start here. First thing we see in the scene, this pen. Let's talk about that. Why? Well, it's on the sort of lightest point against, it's like near the middle of the scene. It's got a very light, it's a very dark pen on a very light background, and it's the sharpest thing in the scene. And it's also on a third. It's on where 2/3 intersect. So these little red dots here are great places to put like bits of interest. And I'm not in game pulling up a rule of thirds. I don't have, G-Shade does have a thirds overlay that you can like toggle on and off if you want it to help you. Let me see if I can find that really quick, because I don't usually. So let's go back to just our default sort of reshade. I'm gonna force load all shaders. Composition thirds. So this is something that you can throw on your scene if you want to kind of think about it in game, where to place your characters. And you can throw it on a hotkey, because if you take a screenshot with this, it will show up. So don't do that. So that is just letting you guys know that does exist. I'm glad we had that drawing up the whole time as well. So where the thirds intersect in your frame is a great place to place your focal points, things of interest. So we've got his hat kind of on this, where these 2/3 are intersecting as well. And then all of the action actually is sort of centered in the frame too. So you're kind of following this sort of path, or leading our eye around this sort of path. So we go, the pen is pointing to his hat, which is, we're following this little line here. We come to Kate's expression. So that's just something that you can think about. And the rule of thirds kind of creates this more casual, natural, sort of organic feel to a frame. We'll get more into that when we talk about symmetry. So here we have a scene where this is very much on a vertical third. So we have orange on a third here, and he's pushing Poppy into this kind of third of the frame, and then the crowd is kind of organized on this third. And I didn't go into this saying, oh, I'm gonna put him on a third, I'm gonna push him in the frame. She's push him. He's trapping her in the third of the frame. No, I just went, that looks nice, and you know why? Because he's on a third. I'm gonna push him. So that's just kind of a way to think about that. So why does it look nice? Because he's on a vertical third. Here's an example of putting something on a horizontal third. So we have Kate in the back here. And we have a bunch of horses in the front. Kate is a little bright spot on a darker background. So we're gonna look at her. Also, this fence line is on a third, and you'll see a lot of his like paintings, old paintings that do this with horizons. They'll put a horizon on a horizontal third, and it just creates it's a very pleasing sort of composition. And she's also very close to this focal point, so it's easy for our eyes to find her. Consequently, these are not on a third, so that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing. This horse is on a focal point. Maybe this horse is the main character. I don't know. It's not a perfect screenshot. It was just the one I had. Just to kind of show an example of putting your horizon line on a third. So, in opposition to that, we can talk about symmetry. So, I promise you I'm not going to go into any more other than just thirds and symmetry. And a lot of people know thirds, and that's just kind of where thirds feel very casual, very conversational. Symmetry is very... it's very symmetrical. So Wes Anderson in his films uses a lot of symmetry, and it gives them this kind of otherworldly, whimsical sort of not like it's a sort of whimsical feeling. And when I say I mean man standing emoji. So like, you know this one where the guy's like, he's got a little red shirt. That's what I mean when I say so his films feel very stylistic because of this. So this is a screenshot from the kind of the first time Val enters this government facility when he's a teenager. And it's also the kind of the beginning of Gen 6. So I kind of end the scene, or sort of this is a shot near the end of the scene, and he is symmetrical in the scene, and we're viewing him from the back, and it's sort of a hero pose, even though he's not a hero, but it's kind of gives this feeling of importance to the frame, like this is our main character, this is the person we're going to be following. Here, Poppy is also in the middle, framed in the middle of the scene, and I wanted to create this sort of crushing feeling. She's got the maximalism wallpaper and its long focal length that's kind of creating this sort of Alice in Wonderland-esque falling down sort of a rabbit hole, being crushed by her own decisions, and it gives a sort of weight to the scene. And when you contrast it with all these thirds that we're using, it's very much a this is a moment kind of shot. It also makes it feel very uneasy, like this shot, which I both hate and love, because Anoki is placed on this right in the middle of the scene. She is taking up the whole shot. We have a long focal length, so it feels weird, which is exactly what I like about it, and also I hate about it. Because in this scene, we are Poppy. We are the character she's greeting. Poppy doesn't feel great about this either. So I thought it was a good one to include because it's kind of giving that exact sort of feeling that we are also visibly uncomfortable, like the character whose shoes we are in. That's a little bit about symmetry. It's just kind of an interesting break in like sort of thirds. So let's talk about guiding lines or leading lines. So we want to talk about how we want to move the audience's eye very quickly around a frame. And we've talked about this a lot, especially with contrast. So when we look at this image, the first place our eye goes is Val's face. This is the first time we see Val in the casino arc. He has shown up out of nowhere. And why did we look at his face first? Well, one, he's pale-ass white boy on this dark car. He's wearing dark glasses, so there's a lot of contrast there. Two, Leanne's pointing at him. She's physically pointing at him. So is the car. The car is pointing at him as well. So when I set up a shot, something I keep in the back of the mind, I like to frame, kind of skewer my characters' heads as well, so that like bits of their environment are framing them. And I guess that's more of a blocking thing, but we have a lot of elements in this scene that are telling you, I'm sorry, Leanne, I apologize, pointing at your ass. We have a lot of elements that is in the scene that are telling you, look here. And that's going to be especially clear here when we look at this picture of Sunny. So if I just had a flat wood floor, and I didn't think about this, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to put a grate here so I can frame her against it. No, Sunny is looking at this painting here, but we look directly at her first because she is being pointed to by the grates in this floor. All the lines on this floor are pointing at her head. Just like that. So that's the first thing we're seeing because A, she's being lit, and B, the floor is literally pointing at her. That's a nice thing to think about. This is an interesting scene because we have a physical object pointing at Chad in a very threatening motion. We also have the main villain kind of with eye contact looking directly at him, and we have this line connecting the two. So she's talking, he's listening. So we have this line from his mouth to kind of his expression. That are all, so we follow this kind of natural movement from her to him because we have a lot of different elements that are connecting the two. And then we don't even see Vera. Half the time you're not going to see Vera because Vera's very low contrast. She's in the foreground. And this is an extremely high contrast point because there's an extremely tense conversation going on. Also, if we want to get really artsy about it, she's physically stopping escape from the frame. Like the door is over here. She is physically blocking the door because they are trapped in a situation. If we want to get really fartsy about it. This is the scene where I was like, this could be the golden rule, because I was like, look, it's a spiral. Shut up, man. We have lines. So we have the lines from the ski lift leading into Poppy's foot as we follow her body around. Her eye is looking at the detonator. And we physically follow her body around. The detonator is being framed by her arm. It's also being framed by the snowy landscape. So we kind of, our eye follows in sort of a very natural, pretty pattern, and everything else falls away. Let's talk quickly now about creating a mood. Like I said before, I hate editing in Photoshop. If I can avoid it, I will do anything. So this means I play with reshade like Play-Doh. Let's like take a look at the scene. So in this scene, this little girl has gotten herself into a bit of trouble, and she finds herself trapped in a sea cave. She can't see underwater. Everything's very blurry. It's a very dark moment. It's very foreboding, and I compared it to Alice falling down a rabbit hole before she gets to Wonderland. Here I've used really a lot of bokeh in the background with my adaptive depth of field. I've used a lot of chromatic aberration, and everything is very blurry. This, I don't think I used the shot because her foot's clipping out of view, but who knows, I might have. But everything's telling you to look here, look at the expression. It's blue because we're underwater, it's eerie, it's a little bit dire. I wanted it to feel like we're there with her. We can't see what's happening around. We're also kind of scared of what might happen. And we'll contrast that to the resolution of this scene when there's a big change. I don't want to like spoil it. I don't know. You probably already, if you're here, you might have already read it. I don't want to spoil it too much. But suddenly the world opens up around her. The colors are brighter. It's happier. It's a little more focused. We still have, this is sort of the like taking a breath moment. So we have this little bit of aberration around to create some movement. Just on the edges here. She still can't see underwater, so I didn't want to make it too clear. But you'll see that the world opens up around her. It's not as fuzzy, it's a little clearer. We have clear colors. And she's still being framed in the scene. We can see her expression. So let's take a look at another scene. So I apologize if this makes your tummy hurt, but this is like a very extreme example of using chromatic aberration that I was playing with. In this scene, we have our main character, Poppy. She has just woken up in the middle of the night. It's like 3 a.m. Something is weird. Things are weird. Things are getting weird. We have a lot of chromatic aberration that I've thrown on this scene for a very specific reason. Because I don't want to spoil it, because this is very recent, but I want you to know, I want the audience to know that something is wrong. So I've shot her in a mirror, so which kind of gives the feeling of being watched, and I've also blown out all of the light. So we have a lot of chromatic aberration, we have a lot of bloom in this scene to give sort of a dreamlike feeling. So if we contrast that to as the scene goes on, she sees someone out the window, she goes to wake up her roommate. Her roommate does not take it well. And we see Kate is very clear and sharp in this scene, and Poppy still has those bits of chromatic aberration on her. And this is to add sort of like a movement effect and kind of give some movement to the scene, as well as you see it's starting to get a little less because we're being pulled back into reality. And by the time the joke hits and she's like, oh, it's just you, it's very flat because the moment has passed. And now after they finish talking and they go back to the window, they're not gonna, that thing that she saw earlier isn't gonna be there anymore. And we're kind of foreshadowing that by kind of cutting all those crazy effects as the scene went on. This is a spoiler, but here we go. So in this scene, there's two characters having a moment, and the moment goes from good to bad. So we start with sort of a soft blur to kind of give a dreamy sort of romantic feeling. We've blurred out the background, the lights are very pretty, and the way we're going to change it, the background's going to still stay pretty, but you can tell in this scene something is wrong, and maybe your eye can't catch it immediately, but you can see, besides the physical body language, this scene is on a Dutch angle. And sorry, I apologize, Kate, for cutting through your neck. This scene is tilted, and that is actually something you normally can't do in The Sims without a little bit of trickery. Because in The Sims, everything is very much straight up and down, and it's hard to give you that sort of uneasy feeling. Did you notice that before, when we were talking about Sunny in this scene, she's upside down? I didn't flip this in Photoshop. I shot this upside down. This is up because she's floating underwater. So I'm going to show you a quick little trick how you can kind of create this sort of effect in The Sims. And in theory, so it works best if you have a character whose head is tilted. And let's see, I think Simcraft's head's a little bit tilted here, so I think she's going to be our best model for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that first person trick again. I'm going to hit Shift Tab. You can see that the environment's a little bit tilted here. So instead of moving her head, I'm actually going to save this as a camera position. So I'm hitting Control 5 to save that. I'm going to go out of Shift Tab, and then I'm just going to hit regular tab, and then I'm going to hit 5. And now this is Nightmare World, but whatever. But now when I zoom, this whole scene is now on a tilt. So this is something that you can use to create a little bit of unease. So it kind of feels like the whole place is going to start sliding. But if you want to create sort of a slightly different effect, this kind of feels more like we're like panning in on some sort of action movie scene. We're coming in at a diagonal. It's very interesting, but it adds some movement. And if it's just a slight, a little bit amount, it's going to add a little bit of unease to the situation. So that's just a way that you can use that on your end. So I used it here with Sunny because she is physically grabbing this little robot that's recording her and just kind of shaking him. So I used it and I tilted her just using this pose she's already in. So now it's kind of this fun effect where the background is tilted, and I didn't edit this at all. This is all reshade. This is all the VCR, the everything. It's all reshade. So that's some fun stuff you can play with. I would say, like, make a copy of your preset, poke around, start sliding things. The worst thing you could do is mess up the copy and make another copy. Just remember to work iteratively if you're ever poking at things. I always forget how to do that. Actually, if you use G-Shade, you can do these little things called preset flares. So this is gonna look awful. This reshade only looks good in like Chestnut Ridge for some reason. It's just a really awful reshade that I've been building. So I have all these different presets. So like this one's for night. Like that one's just this one I made. This is like for mornings, indoors, and I just keep adding to them. So if you want to have like a base reshade you change a little bit, you can try making a little flare thing. I don't know if that's on reshade, but it's definitely on G-Shade. So you can give that a try, or you can, before what I was doing, I made a bunch of copies. So you can give that a go too. Just don't do what I do when accidentally be like, I'm just gonna change a few values, and then you've ruined your reshade that you use all the time. So don't make my mistakes. We're getting near the end. So quickly, I want to talk about color. Color has stereotypes assigned to it through film, through animation. I use blue a lot for my side of good. Blue's even as like it, because they're also the government, so like it's kind of a ACAB color. And then we have red for evil, so all of the scenes are comically red. You don't have to push it as far. I just like a lot of color in my scenes. But even just going as far to like light your house in the game, just changing the colors of your lamps. Like Val's Lair is lit like a fun house. There's some rooms that are just like straight up green, purple, whatever. And I do that to change the mood so it's easy in the scene. Like with this room, I have all these little ravishing invisible lights pointed up to make it look like the lava's glowing. This one I used an aggressively red reshade so that it's just sort of giving this sort of evil vibe to it. The lab unit's very cold, it's very blue because it's a very sterile environment. So think about just the mood killer in anything is just leaving your lights the default color. So even if you're just like a cozy gamer, like maybe try changing the lights in your room to more of a orangey yellow. I find that yellow for candles is kind of gross, like in game. It kind of gives your characters a sickly pallor, so I usually push it a little more towards orange. And if you have better build by Team X has like a whole color wheel you can mess with too. So try giving your house, your Sims houses, and it's just kind of cozy too, having a little bit of nice custom lighting. And of course, colors have stereotypes assigned to them. Blue is usually like blue is good guys, rose bad guys, green is eerie and otherworldly and alien. Purple can be either romantic or maybe it's a little bit otherworldly. So it's just things to think about. Now, before we go, we have reached the end of the main portion, but I want to show you something very cool. Let's talk about something that Shuri thought up and then taught to me, and I'm really excited about it. Let's talk about this game's 10 years old. Where can we go in the future with this? So there's this little mod called Wicked Whims, and that mod, I swear to God, if Turbo wanted to, I think he could cure cancer. It's built like a truck. It's such an insanely cool mod. And there's a lot of things you can do with it. And so lately, what we've been doing is kind of tricking it, and playing with it to get kind of a cool effect. So using Wicked Whims as a pose player, not just the Wicked Whims pose player, physically injecting your poses to the Wicked Whims system. So I play with height sliders because I'm a psychopath that likes my men to be a little taller because they always feel too short in the game. So this is a pose that I originally made just for my story, and it was frustrating me because I had these binoculars here, which were a little pose accessory I made. And Kate starts out with them. They're assigned to her character, and then she hands them to Poppy, who is much shorter. Kate is the tallest of the three girls. So she hands them to Poppy, and then they clip weirdly in her hands. And I said, oh my god, I'm gonna have to move the hands. I'm gonna have to solve this somehow, and it's annoying, and I've spent countless hours just trying to get poses to line up, because I use height sliders, like going into cast, changing them a little bit just so that the hands will line up. I can kind of see my experiments here. I was like trying to be like, what can I do to get the characters to line up correctly? Same thing here. Diego's taller, Kate's a little bit shorter, their hands are clipping weird. I wanted them to do a little scene, but I was just threw myself at this problem for like 4 hours. But using Wicked Whims, since it has a built-in height slide, it works with height sliders. So what it does is it evens out all your characters before starting any animation, so that if you have a custom rig, if you make someone taller or shorter, it'll kind of even everyone out for you, and then it'll apply your pose. So now all I have to do is, when I make my pose, make the Sims physically taller or shorter when we're making poses, and then it'll even everyone out and then assign the pose. Another thing you can do with Wicked Whims is you can pull objects as props. So gone are the days of having a prop that conflicts with everything and having pens the size of hats. This is a walkie-talkie from Around the Sims 4. I wanted to use it in the scene. I wanted to have Maya here throw the walkie-talkie to one of the agents, and I didn't want to make a pose accessory. There's some little weirdness happening. You can see the shadow mesh. You can see Maya's hand through this for some reason, but it's fine. That might be because it's a stereo. I don't know the way it pulls it. So you can pull any object in the game as a prop. So I just brought it in as an object in Pose Player, and I posed it using the rig it comes with, and then just loaded it into the system. And I'm gonna do a whole, as soon as I figure out 100% I know what I'm doing, I want to do a tutorial on how to do this. But now I don't have to worry about assigning it to anyone. I just click the desk, I click the animation, it goes, which I find really cool. This clipboard is also summoned, sorry. So this is an eco lifestyle clipboard. This is an accessory pen. This is a hat. This pen was originally a hat, so I had to go in and move all of the UVs so it's not a hat, so he could wear both at the same time. But if it was just a pen, I could just summon it using Wicked. But I summoned this clipboard, so there's a lot of moving parts in this scene, which I'll show you. We have the gate, we have a horse, we have a dog, we have a man in his hat and his pose accessories, and also his clipboard that I've summoned. So there's a lot of moving parts. But what really gets me excited about it is we can animate doors. Instead of just having, like, Quiddity, bless her heart, has like made like these drafty doors that are just like half open doors. Or sometimes used to have a sim that would just be my door opener. Like, hey, could you walk in? And then we have a 15-second window before that door closes to shoot the shot. With this, I animated it all on this gate. So this whole scene is animated on this gate. So I was able to just swing this gate for the pose. And then I teleported in the horses and in Chavo, who's the dog, and I just centered it all in the gate. And I timed it, because you know that Wicked Whims has that like 25 to 10 second lead up. So I was basically just unpausing, waiting for them to start the animation, and then I had the animals start there, so I lined it all up. It's very exciting to me that you can just do that. And then with the scene, did you notice that she's animating in a bed? Good. Instead of having to be awkwardly lying on top of it or under a blanket or something that's not connected to the bed, now you can just have the bed animate. And like, yes, the regular animators have been doing this for years, but it would be so cool. Turbo, it would be so cool if we could just get a pose player that lets us do all of these things without having to, trick the Wicked Whims system. So I'm going to show you real quick in game kind of the things I mean. So I'm going to have Poppy and Alejandro come up here because Poppy is very little and Alejandro is very tall. And it causes me stress a lot of the times. And you'll get a lot of weird clipping. And I know the smog, it's fine. So I'm going to show you kind of a regular pose first. So they're not going to do the animation where they have to cough because it's dying, but you'll see when we run this pose that, especially if the creators used like custom heights to kind of create that height difference, sometimes she'll get stretched out and she'll get even shorter. So you can see we have like some gapping happening here, and then that's where I would have to go in and cheat him and tool him down, or like maybe take it from like a weird angle so it was okay. They say we have her hand clipping into his shoulder like that, same thing. I usually have to like adjust her like 0.3 or something. So alternatively, now I have set up a custom settings profile for Wicked Whims because I've been using it in my spin-off save, and it's just one that's basically like nobody gets undressed, nobody runs away in fright, just something just for posing. So I'm gonna just click the ground, and then I'm gonna select these two, then I'm gonna go to my poses, and then I am going to, let's do this little spin kiss that I made. So it evens them out. Ugh. Oh no, she's got a... Alright, we're gonna do this because I also have the teen preset on her, and that does not change it. So we'll do valid chat. They get to kiss, I guess, today. I also have it where it starts immediately. There we go. Yeah, I have to remember to take the teen preset off of her so that, because it does not automatically account for that. So you get to have a kiss today. Congratulations. So I animated a kiss for them for the casino heist arc, and I had to make them the same height so that it wouldn't clip weirdly. But with this, you can see it, they'll pop into position if I unpause. And they pop. And even though they're the different heights in game, it's lining up correctly. The hands are where they should be. All kinds of fun stuff. He's clipping, it's made for women, so chat's kind of thick, so he's getting clipped into a little bit, but it's better than nothing. Then I guess I'll have, I have some solo ones for summoning things. So I made this, I wanted to have Poppy drink a glass of water, but I wanted to have her animate while she was drinking it, so I summoned a glass of water. I chose the state where it's actually full of water, and then there's just this little animation that I made just so I could have the water summoned like that. So that's a little short overview about why that's really cool and why I would like to see more people using it, and why I would like Turo to make a separate pose player. So thank you guys so much for listening and listening to me ramble today. If you learned something, please check out my Patreon. I make CC. All my stuff is free. You can become for $2 gets you work in progress posts and polls and stuff like that. I'm also looking into figuring out a little bit of a one-time tip system with their shop. I'm going to try that out. So when my patio set comes out next week, I'll premiere that as well. So we'll check that out. Also, I have a Ko-fi, and if it's interesting, anyway. But I mean, if anything, I also write the story, and it means literally the world to me when anyone reads it or follows it or goofs around with me on it. And like, if anything, like, check that out. It's free. It's just silly, and we have fun. And you can find that on Tumblr and Twitter. So sorry for plugging. I hate plugging myself on the internet, but yeah. So thank you so much. That's gonna be the end of the presentation. We're gonna go into Q&A. So if you're on YouTube, thank you for watching.